They hung out at our house a lot. But yeah, Joe's
I think we're gonna
other
lose
sister got her power
once
back
we get started.
yesterday, and
Save
then
it.
the third sister got hers on
Yeah.
Friday. So it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then they got theirs on, yes, today.
It looks bigger.
But, yeah, 2 weeks is too long.
It's live. Dang. Looks like I got a minute.
Quiet.
There's always someone. That would have been my brother. Okay. All right. I'd like to call the Linn-Mar Community School Board regular meeting to order. Can you please determine quorum?
Buckles,
Here.
Eisenberg,
Here.
Lawson,
Here.
Maury,
Here.
Nelson,
Here.
Wall, Weaver.
Here.
Quorum is present at 5 o'clock.
Thank you. Next, we need an adoption of the agenda, and we need to have it stated with the walk-in personal exhibit.
Make a motion to adopt the agenda with the walk-in personnel exhibit.
Second.
Okay, Kara, motion, and Britt, second. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We get to start right away today with some good things, happy things. So let's begin.
All right. So Bo and I are smiling, just so you know. First of all, thank you guys for having me here today from the American Heart Association. I don't envy any of you guys who sit in these seats having to make very challenging decisions right now, but I pray for your community of people, your schools, that everyone's okay. Best of luck as you guys charter through these very interesting times to be in school soon. As your partner in community health, please know that AHA is a resource for all of you guys as you look for health-related resources for staff, students, and families. Linn-Mar has been a supporter of the American Heart Association for years. We want to thank the school board, administrators, and PE teachers who have engaged their students in Jump Rope for Heart, our program, over that period of time. Our program is now called the Kids Heart Challenge. The Kids Heart Challenge is about educating students on heart health, encouraging them to take the challenge to either be kind, to be active, or to be ready and drink more water, as well as providing an opportunity for kids and students to give back by helping raise funds for the American Heart Association. Our mission is to help save hearts through research, education, and training, and Linn-Mar students at Bowman Woods have helped us do just that. As I get to travel to schools in eastern Iowa that covers 14 counties, I get to see a lot of schools. I get to see a lot of PE teachers firsthand, interacting, engaging their students in our heart health program. One teacher truly sticks out as a heart hero because of what he does to go above and beyond to want students to have fun and to learn about how to take care of their own hearts. When I was at Bowman Woods last spring, kicking off the Kids Heart Challenge, I was really impressed with how Bo interacted and managed his students in his gym. I want to thank Bo Westfall for choosing to educate students on heart health and the importance of supporting the American Heart Association. I appreciate you, Bo. Thanks for all you do.
I just want to thank Shelby for, with the American Heart Association for supporting me this past year and the American Heart Association in the years past that I've done Jump Rope for Heart. And thank all of you for getting our youth back into some education. So I look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Shelby. Congratulations, Bo.
All right.
Congratulations.
Next, we are going to have the Lion Awards. Carla Christian.
Well, this year you don't get the treat of me standing here and reading everybody's paragraphs, but Shannon was kind enough to make a video, which has been a very strange year. We couldn't do anything in person, so we have the video for this year, and I'm hoping for next year we can have both years' winners combined, so they can at least have some personal recognition. So I'm going to play the video for all of you.
Thank you, Carla.
As we all know, the COVID pandemic canceled or postponed many year-end traditions, including the announcement of the district's 2020 Lions Awards. For those who are new to Linn-Mar, the annual Lions Awards celebrate outstanding contributions to the district in a wide range of categories. I'd like to take this opportunity to celebrate our newest Linn-Mar Lion Award honorees. The 2020 Living Legend for Excellence and Leadership Award recipient is Lisa Mooney. Lisa was nominated by Danielle Patterson. She says Lisa is caring, compassionate, and can help students with any situation. Not only does she support students, she is also a great mentor to our teachers as well. She often helps with strategies to work with at-risk teens or students with depression or anxiety. Congratulations, Lisa Mooney. The 2020 Innovator Award for Excellence in Positive Change is presented to Aaron Watts. Aaron was nominated by Deborah Berry and Jess Dirks. Jess says, Aaron has led schools and departments through dialogues that, while potentially uncomfortable, have no doubt empowered these groups to move forward in directions that are best for students. Aaron knows the answer is always in the room. It's just a matter of being willing to have the right conversation to find it. Congratulations, Aaron Watts. We have a tie for the 2020 Optimizer for Excellence in Teamwork Award, Kelly Trier and Phil Miller. Kelly was nominated by Carly Remington. Carly says, Kelly taught us, if you know one student with autism, you know one student with autism. Each child is unique. She educates the classroom staff about strategies that work best. She coaches to support the student. She helps everyone feel empowered. She coaches the team to coach each other, and then she checks back to celebrate growth. Phil was nominated by Ryan Phillips. Ryan says, Phil is blessed with abundant amounts of patience and professionalism. The district has been the beneficiary of these qualities for many years. Congratulations to both Phil Miller and Kelly Trier. The 2020 Newcomer for Excellence and New Ideas Award goes to Katie Smith. Katie was nominated by Ryan Phillips. Katie is in her second year with the district. Ryan says she forges relationships and establishes wonderful communication with internal staff at the building level, while relentlessly pursuing the resources needed to help our students succeed. Congratulations, Katie Smith. The 2020 Service for Excellence in Superior Performance Award winner is Michael Brandt. Michael was nominated by Ed Rogers. Mr. Brandt has been a part of Linn-Mar for 29 years and counting. You've probably seen his work across the district. He designed many of the Linn-Mar Lion logos, the safety penguins, and more. In his nomination, his principal, Ed Rogers, presented a list of Mr. Brandt's qualifications for the award. Outstanding creativity and innovation, an unending positive attitude, great enthusiasm, exceptional productivity, unwavering flexibility, and exceptional leadership skills. Congratulations, Michael Brandt. The 2020 Lion Pride Award, Going the Extra Mile, goes to Linn-Mar volunteer Donna Bean. Donna was nominated by Carla Clinton. Carla writes, Donna goes the extra mile in everything she has done for the district. She retired from teaching in 1996, but has continued as a substitute teacher and a volunteer. In 3 years, Donna has logged 714 hours. She is a fixture at Bowman Woods. Congratulations, Donna Bean. And finally, the 2020 Shirley Fantini Excellence in Equity Award goes to Christy Dix. Christy was nominated by Ryan Phillips. He says Christy recognizes the inequities that groups face daily and works tirelessly to ensure our students feel safe, secure, and cared for throughout our district. Congratulations, Christy Hicks. And congratulations to all our Lions Award winners.
All right, let's continue with our audience communication. Due to the COVID-19 social distancing guidelines and limited space available here at the LRC, all audience communications were submitted to J.T. Anderson, Board Secretary, by noon today. Have we received any, J.T.?
We have 3 communications.
Okay, if you'd read those, please.
Sure. The first one is from Allison Morgan. It says, "Dear Linn-Mar board members, will all of the school buildings be conducting a COVID capacity test for every classroom like they did for the high school? If not, how will the district ensure students can safely maintain the 6 feet social distancing recommendation by the CDC? Thank you for your input, Allison Morgan." Secondly, this is from Alan Rutan. It says, "Dear school board members, my name is Alan Rutan. I am a father of 3 daughters of varying ages that do and will go to Linn-Mar schools. I contacted you all via email 2 weeks ago regarding the bus transportation 2 weeks ago, and I came into last week's meeting hoping to hear what was going to be done about it. As I discovered, last week's meeting was an emergency session specifically for the storm damage. Luckily, I was able to discuss my concerns with Mr. Buckles and Mr. Biscard, who both seemed in agreement that I should have bus service since we don't have any connecting sidewalks to get my children safely to school. The section of street my children are expected to walk is along Indian Creek Road, which is a dead-end street now stopping just before the new Tower Terrace Road. This street being a dead end, you would think is very lightly traveled and shouldn't be an issue to walk on. Well, just like every other weekend, we had a not-so-attentive driver drive off the road at probably 40 to 50 miles per hour and get their car entangled in the fencing at the end of the street. Luckily for us and them, no one was hurt, but it is very easily could have been a different story. I am sincerely asking you to change the availability of bus service for our cul-de-sac so our children can safely make it to school. With all the things we need to worry about this year, I don't want to add the thought of losing a life or a 1.6-mile walk, or for my kids to the list of my concerns. Concerned father, Alan Rutan." And then lastly, this is from Kate Frank. It says, "Good morning. I am writing as a concerned parent and teacher of the Linn-Mar Community School District. I teach first grade at Indian Creek. I have a 4th grader at Indian Creek and a 5th grader who will attend Boulder Peak. We live on Oak Savannah Court, which is located off Indian Creek Road. When we built our house 5 years ago, we were told that we would have busing, as there is not a sidewalk connecting our cul-de-sac to any of the neighboring streets. We were informed this spring that we would no longer be part of the bus route. I am very concerned as there is not a sidewalk for our children to walk to school. In order to get to a street with a sidewalk, our children would have to walk on the side of Indian Creek Road. This has become a dead end in the past year. My concern is the amount of cars that go speeding down the street. On any given day, there are multiple cars that come to a screeching halt, not realizing that Indian Creek Road no longer goes through. There are signs that say dead end, and there are 3 signs with red reflectors and a metal fence where the road ends. Last week, we witnessed a car barrel through the fence and signs. Police officers came and the driver was ticketed. This is not a safe road to expect children to walk on without a sidewalk. I am including pictures from last week's incident. I am hopeful that the board will see our concern, as Oak Savannah Court is home to 8 Linn-Mar students. Thank you, Kate Frank."
Okay, thank you. At this point, we will move on to our informational reports, and we have quite a few today. Let's start with human resource update. Carla Christian.
Okay, Gayla had passed out a packet that looks like this to all of you. I was going to wow you with my PowerPoint and all those things, and then it just wouldn't work. So, we get the paper today. So first, on the first slide, it says health and safety. And underneath that, you're going to see it says staff survey. So right behind that first packet, you're going to see this that says staff survey. And what we've done is we've attached this to our Return to Learn presentation that administrators are going to give to all of their employees when they do come back. So what I've asked them to do with this, we've added additional comments that people asked for after the last time we presented this. We're asking administrators to highlight 2 to 3 of the highest concerns, and then any other additional comments that their staff wants to talk about on the first several slides. And then on slide 6, what aspects of your employee experience do you want to see maintained post-COVID-19? What we'd like to get feedback on is what does communication look like to them, and what do they prefer? And then,
What's slide 6? I don't see numbers on there. What was the top of it?
it's
Page 3?
page 3.
It's one with the bar. or
It's on the pie chart.
Oh, okay.
And then on slide 9, we asked, what are you looking forward to when employees return? I would like administrators to discuss some positives of coming back to work with coworkers and some of the positives that they're looking forward to for this very different school year. In the interest of time, I didn't go through all of these. I've gone through this with you before at a board meeting, so if you have any questions about this, feel free to let me know.
Does anyone have any questions at this time?
She has more.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I have a lot more.
Is this the same, and the same presentation from before? Is that what you're saying? Or is it
We
updated?
gathered more responses from classified
Oh,
staff
okay.
in the mail, and then we added the additional comments to the right side
Okay.
that we gathered during that survey. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. And the main packet on the second, or the third page, it's return to work safely. And this is what I would click on. This is the packet here. We sent this out in July as well. It's basically just returning to learn what we're doing in the schools. So if you go to the third page, what we're doing, I'm asking administrators to let everybody know what we're doing for cleaning, temperatures, non-essential visitors, common areas, workplace layouts, all those types of things that we're doing to try to keep everybody safe. More of the cleaning type arrangements. And then on the next page, it says what you can do. I think most people have heard of all of these things. Basically maintaining that social distancing. If you don't feel well, stay home or go home. Follow cleaning product instructions when cleaning your work areas. That's very important. Wash your hands frequently. Make sure that you're covering your nose and mouth. Avoid touching your face, and then wear a face covering as well. We're not going to really have high fives or anything. We're just going to have head nods and waves this year. Avoid using everybody else's things. Talk to your supervisor or us if you have concerns specific to your circumstances. For example, if you're at high risk of some type of condition. And then finally, be kind. Everybody is stressed. I've never seen people this stressed right now, so just remember kindness can go a long way. And then we go on to some different frequently asked questions. Can I continue to work from home? Is it safe to return to work? Do I have to wear a mask? That answer is yes. And then in-person meetings, we are going to continue with the phase 1, phase 2, 10 to 50 people, depending on what phase we're in. So until we get out of that phase, that's what we'll try to do with staff. And the rest of it is really general about how positive cases of COVID be handled. And then the final slide is basically changes are still possible at work. So everything is changing every day, seems like every hour. So we are trying to keep up with all of that and how that works.
Hey, Carla.
Yep.
Under do I have to wear a mask at work? It says students and staff will be required to wear a face covering unless social distancing is practiced.
And this was out a long time ago.
Okay.
So we're still updating these kinds of things. So this presentation was ready to go on August 10th.
Okay.
And then
Guess what?
the hurricane came. So,
Okay. Wanted to check.
nope, you got it. So we have, you see, I put on all your chairs the staff masks that are going to be distributed next week. We also have student masks that are a little bit smaller. We have provided a video on how to properly don and doff a fabric face covering. Those are new words for a lot of us. That's take on, take off, basically. And then we have a couple things from Centers for Disease Control and WHO, just how to put on, take off your mask, do's, don'ts, those types of things. CDC has just recently stated that masks with valves are not effective, so I've added that in to our presentation for the administrators. So we're really kind of trying to keep up on all the latest. Now there's some things going on around gators, things like that. So we're trying to keep on top of all of the information out there and trying to make the best decision that we can on masks. Questions on that?
And I have a question, I think it's for you. With all the COVID stuff in general, is it just, it's not in policy, so where is it and how do we enforce it? I mean, is it just a, I guess, I don't know, because I'm trying to understand that if someone goes to policy, it's not in there, of course, because this is all brand spanking new, right? But how do we, where is it written down, I guess?
Where's the actual?
Is it the return to learn plan that we focus back on?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And the specifics, because the return to learn plan will address the requirement for masks. But then the specifics of it will be more in the handbook that were the materials we're sharing with staff, which is what this slide that Carla's sharing with you with staff and the details.
Right. But not only masks, but just everything that's kind of changed. It all kind of go back to that, and then you kind of link it to whether it's return to work for employees and stuff like that.
Yep. Especially since the board approved the return to learn plan, in essence, that makes it, in lieu of board policy,
Okay.
the leverage we would go back to enforce the guidelines. Yep.
Okay.
And also, Tim, for staff, this PowerPoint that's going out is going to be sent out to all staff as well after the presentation.
Okay.
When staff come back on the 31st. So they have something to reference as well. All right, on our next slide, return to work safely. We have hand washing tips. We think everybody knows how to do that already, but we have that on there just to make sure everybody is super clear on how to wash your hands. And then we've had a lot of questions about clothes, shoes, and things of that nature. So basically, the likelihood of contracting the virus from your clothes is considered fairly low. I have attached, this is your next thing in your packet. Can coronavirus live on your clothes and shoes? Here's what we know right now. And then this article has a lot of links on different sources that kind of talk about, clothes, it's a low risk. Shoes is a low risk, although you may want to, if you have children at home that play on the floor, you may want to take your shoes off before. So basically, this kind of covers a lot of that. Again, we're trying to keep up with research and all the best practices. So again, that may change. Right now, our answer with clothing is we just expect people to dress for their profession. Any questions on that? Okay.
Don't see any.
Okay. The next slide is personal decisions to think about. On that, we have a link that goes to a video that talks about why it's important to wear a mask and all of the things that go along with that. After that, we'd like administrators to talk to their staff about the following questions. Should I go to this large gathering? Is it more than 50 people? Are people wearing masks and social distancing? What is the perception of students, parents regarding my posts, like social media? And then, am I protecting myself and others, including my family, coworkers, and students? So I'd really like them to have a pretty hearty discussion about decisions that we make going out and about. Any questions on that? All right. Next is the fun part. So we have the COVID illness guidelines. So there's a difference between being exposed, and that's when you self-quarantine, or if you're sick, and that's when you self-isolate. So when it says staff illness, what do I do if? We have this handy dandy flow chart. It's 1 or 2 steps when you go all the way down. This is what we've been using in human resources so far when we have people who don't feel well or possibly might have been exposed. So the first page of that flow chart is just every single situation. If you go to the second and third page, basically those break it down between I am sick or I've been exposed. We've ran this by Linn County Public Health. They've approved it. So this is what we're doing now. Again, if things change, then we'll change along with it. And then also have a COVID hotline for staff. So anything staff COVID related, they can call. That number goes directly into human resources, and all of us have access to that line and to that voicemail. So we'll be checking that quite a bit, I'm sure, in the next several weeks and months. So we do have that out there. Of course, they can call us on a regular phone, but this we know is for sure COVID-related things for staff. Any questions on that? Any volunteers to man that line?
It's a great idea. It's a great idea.
Okay. So next, this just kind of tells you in a nutshell, what do I do in what situation? It's a very simple circle. If you are positive, you isolate for 10 days. If you have close contact with someone with a positive test, you quarantine for 14 days. And then no close contact with a positive person, you just continue on. That just kind of makes things a little bit easier. All right. I only have about 35 minutes left of this, so there we go. So leave for staff. We've gotten a lot of questions about COVID leave for staff. The next attachment I have looks like this. This is a simple, very, very simple diagram of leave. So you kind of break it into, it's you're feeling ill, you have to care for somebody, or if your child's school or daycare is closed. So this kind of walks everybody through that. This is very simplified. We have the pandemic temporary supplemental procedures that they can look up. Those are very detailed. Those started April 1st, and those have been updated just about weekly ever since then. So we're trying to keep on top of all that as well. Finally, the travel considerations for travelers. We really want people to think about travel, so we're asking them to go to the CDC website to look at what they need to be on the lookout for and what they should do if they're traveling. Any questions on that?
Can I ask a question? I don't know if this is the right time, but where does the FLMA leave fit in here?
It is basically one, for FMLA, it's one more, they've added a reason, another reason for FMLA, and that is if your school or child care is closed. The rest of it is if it's a serious health condition of you or someone in your family.
I have a question, maybe it's, we haven't talked about, I haven't considered, maybe it's open a can of worms, but November, December, January, spring, whenever the vaccine comes out. I know we require kids to have vaccines to go to school. We require to, by a certain time, you have the vaccine as well as employees, or how do, I know we haven't talked about it, and I don't know. I don't know what I'd have to look up what our current policy is.
State mandated?
Yeah, I haven't
Is it
seen any
state
guidance
mandated?
on the state on that yet, as far as what those requirements would be and when and how fast that would be.
Okay.
I look forward to that conversation, because that means we're moving in a positive direction, but I have not seen any specifics on that. And Carla, if you've seen anything on the timing on that yet either. But
So the state is coming out with,
Well, they're the ones that set the mandate for the other vaccines. Our board policy.
that's true, yeah, you're right, yeah, okay.
we wait for their guidance, and then we would implement that in the time they would give us to do that, so.
Does the district have any ability to mandate things outside of the state mandate?
As far as the vaccine would go,
Correct.
not that I'm aware of.
Okay,
But that's never really come up before, so I'd have
Right.
to investigate that and see.
okay.
So,
I'm just curious,
yep.
more than anything.
The federal government is trying to put some pretty strong positives on that. If a vaccine were to come out, they'd like it to be no cost so that it doesn't affect, the money, cost, equity, whatever verbiage you want to use. So, I mean, it's still a mass thing anyway, but.
Whatever we could do to get things quickly distributed so we can get back to relatively normal procedures, we would be in favor of for everybody's health and safety. So that's something we haven't even talked about that aspect of it yet as far as the implementation piece, but we look forward to that conversation.
Can I ask one more question, I guess?
Sure.
Yeah. Are there vaccinations that that are mandated for staff, or is it just for the kids?
That's a great
I don't
question.
know.
I think it's just for students,
It would probably just be for students.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we can mandate.
something we'd have to look into
Okay.
beyond that, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not for sure on that.
Curious if it's
Interesting
precedent.
question. We'll have to
Yeah.
investigate.
Okay.
I mean, it's
I
kind
don't
of like we
think you
don't
probably
mandate.
can.
Yeah, don't know
Just
that
from-
you have any
Yeah.
jurisdiction.
Yeah. Good
Okay.
question. Good
Yeah,
question.
just,
Yeah. Okay.
You guys are full of tough questions right now. I don't know,
Yeah.
that's great.
It's called brainstorming, kind of.
It's in my summer, I don't know. So, okay. Yeah.
right.
And it was almost mandated.
Okay, and then moving on, we have the governor's guidance for staff. That's also a link, but just so you all know, at this time, we're following CDC and Linn County Public Health for any kind of quarantine or conditions such as that.
Have they given us any information on that, on what that might look like at this point? Because that's a question that we continue to get, is what happens if my teacher tests positive? What happens if a student in my child's class tests positive? And I'm just wondering if we have some guidance on what that will look like.
That's a great segue. Next is contact tracing.
Oh,
So any staff member that is exposed or comes up with a positive test, we are required by OSHA to determine if that happened at work or not. So we are contact tracing for all staff members. Lisa has a very similar flow chart to the staff, and that's how it's going to work for students. But that's her area, so I didn't put it up here, but it's very similar. We'll always work with the Department of Public Health to, if we're not sure, that's what we're going to do.
Ask a question?
Yes.
I thought you were going to say if you are exposed, then you would go back to this little circle chart. And if a staff and teacher was exposed, they would be quarantined for 14 days.
They will.
Okay.
So we go back to.
That's
I'm
what
well,
I
yeah,
sorry,
but
did I say
that doesn't necessarily,
That's what we would have them do, but what happens
Yeah,
when...
I understand the contract tracing.
Okay.
I'm just saying, so in theory, we could have, I mean, if you go by the news, we could have 5 teachers in 2 weeks that are out for 14 days.
but what then, like, if a teacher tests positive or their students, what if it's a high school
Right.
teacher who's in contact
Right.
with, I don't know, 5 classes during the day? Do all those students get quarantined? I mean, I think those are the questions that people really want the answers to, is less this kind of individual, right? Like,
Right.
I know if I have lunch with Sandra and she tests positive, I need to quarantine, but, you know what I mean? What do I do if I also, hosted a meeting for 30 people, you know what I mean? So,
Well, and then the next question, the high school example, is those students go to someone else's class.
Right.
Is that teacher? Like, high school and middle school, when they're moving class, that's going to blow up really quickly. My question, and I've had some side conversations, I just want confirmation now that, because things keep changing, under the governor's guidelines, educators are now essential workers, and even if they test positive, as long as they're asymptomatic, they can go back into the classroom. Is my understanding, we are not doing
We
that.
are not doing that.
That's correct.
So
Okay.
if a teacher tests positive, symptom or not, they are not back in the classroom for
Correct.
14 days.
Yeah, we're staying with our flow chart and the guidance from Public Health and CDC, as what Carla was referencing earlier, without being specific on that, so.
Yep. Yep.
And one of the biggest challenges we anticipate we'll have this year is the potential to a staff shortage, whether that's teachers, kitchen staff, bus drivers, you name it. That will be, we anticipate that could be a challenge that we will struggle with throughout the year. So we'll be very flexible in how we help cover and work together, and each of us doing different jobs we normally may do, but even with that, I think that'll be a challenge for us this year, as it will be for every school.
Yep.
Have you seen a positive impact to the changes that were implemented to what it takes to become a substitute? Like, have we already seen more people be willing to sub, or?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
But it's early still, too. There's only so many slots that you can take for the sub auth. So we have had some volunteers take it, I know that. As for if they're going to hold another class, I really hope so, because I think that would be very helpful for us.
We heard some individuals that say they're going to do that, but as far as mass numbers, I don't think we've seen the level we'd love to see in that case. It's not too late for people that are watching tonight to decide to do that. We support that effort very much so.
Yep. Any other questions on that?
Well, I guess I'd come back to my original question, which is, have we received guidance from Linn County Public Health or elsewise about what it's going to look like if a teacher or a student tests positive? Who is quarantining? For how long? Are the buildings shutting down? I mean, those seem like pretty big things that I would hope to have some degree of handle on at this point.
And what they've told us, and Carla, correct me if I'm wrong, my conversations with them has been, we'll take each one individually because their guidance will vary based on the situation of the county at the time in our area. But essentially it goes back to that flow chart you were describing, you saw earlier from Carla, and they'll walk through us with the number of people that, whether there's a positive test or an exposure, and then we'll identify which individuals, adults and children that have been in contact, and if they have, then they will go into that 14-day or 10-day process. So, so we'll go back to that flow chart or that concentric circle, the expanding circle example as well. That'll be our basic process we'll use each time to identify. Now, how far that goes, that's the guidance we'll have to get from public health each time.
So would we potentially close a building down in order to clean it, or would that also be based on you know what I mean? Would that also be something that would depend on the individual case?
Yep, we do not have the authority to close a building and count it as an online learning day. We could still close it, but it wouldn't count as a school day in that case to do the cleaning. We can close a classroom or a grade level. We do have the authority to do that due to positive tests, positive cases, and then we can clean those rooms or those areas as well. We do feel like we have the resources that we could do a pretty quick turnaround on getting the buildings cleaned with our staff and with the what they're called, the sprayers to really disinfect things pretty quickly, much more than we would have been able to do a year ago at this time too.
And
so
then for that grade,
that'll be as much of an issue as it will be just trying to contain the number of people that are potentially exposed in that flow chart as we go through that each time.
And then for that grade that is out, you said we could do online learning for them?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, so for example, in that situation, if it's, I'll just pick third grade at a school, if we had a positive test, either the staff member or the student, if that whole classroom or grade was needed to quarantine at that time, then that teacher in classroom could still continue online for that 2-week time period essentially as well. So.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions on that? I know there's a million, but, you know, until we get into it, it's going to be hard to know. And finally, all I had on here was social, emotional, behavioral health for staff. Just a reminder for staff that we do have our employee assistance program. I have links for them to sign up. There's an app for COVID. It's called a COVID Coach, so I threw that on there. And then our EAP also has some really good sessions regarding stress overload, COVID, those types of things. So we really want them to utilize that resource, reminding them they have up to 5 free sessions for employees and their family members. So
just something else we want to throw out there for them. And then finally, we do have our employee well-being portal, which is Navigate. They also have some really, really good articles and so on and so forth. So that is what we're doing for staff. We'll probably also do a lot of other things this year, which is going to depend on what's happening and when.
Any questions?
I have one. Going back to the staff survey responses, I appreciate the guidance that you're giving administrators to focus on the positives of returning. I think that is important. But what are we doing to address the concerns as well? Because I'm reading some of these additional comments, and I feel like if this was my comment and I went to a meeting and it was all focused on, yay, we're back, let's just focus on the positives, and this wasn't addressed, I would feel like it was being ignored, that I wasn't being given my moment to have valid concerns. So how are we addressing that side of it?
They're addressing it with the staff survey first. That last part is just a very small part of what are we looking forward to. The rest of it is, these are the things we're doing to help you feel safe, and trying to get some feedback on that. We also have some cleaning guidelines that I did not put in there yet. Those will be gone over. So it isn't going to be all rah-rah and yay. I know people are scared, and so we just want to let them know that we support them. Do you have any feedback? What else is going to make you feel safe? But we're all really glad you're back, and let's see what we can do together as a team.
You got a very short version of what staff will
Oh, I'm
see
sure.
on Monday as well.
I want to make sure that,
Yeah.
a big part of
Oh, it
what
is.
we can control is how we're making our staff feel.
Absolutely.
And some of them may not want to come back but don't have a choice.
Mhm.
And I want to make sure that we're listening and doing whatever we can to make sure that whatever environment they are in every day, that they are as comfortable as they can be in that environment.
Yep, absolutely.
And Shannon, you did say that we have put up like hand sanitizing stations, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, wonderful.
Yep, those are throughout every building.
Okay.
Great. Anything else? We good? Thank you, Carla.
How was that for 10 minutes?
That was awesome.
Thanks.
Next, we have Student Services Update. Lisa.
All right, so as Carla mentioned, part of the Return to Learn on student services is one is the other side, the health side with the student. I'm not going to focus at all on that. It really parallels a lot with what Carla said, but more specifically, we worked with all of the nurses in the district, and we worked really close with Linn County Public Health to make sure our nurses' office are ready to go. We worked on family letters, we worked on phone scripts, things like that. So we very much mirror what Carla's doing with the staff as the same on the student side. Another thing that I worked with in student services is our students with IEPs in special education. I've released 7 videos to our special education staff on how do we get through this, what does it look like, because the special education IEP added a whole new page just around virtual and hybrid. So there's been a lot of instruction around that. Released a handout as well as a video to parents, so I sent that to them so they could help answer their questions as well. But really, there's a whole lot that has to be decided at that IEP team meeting. So it can't be just a blanket, this is what we're doing, because it's so much individualized. So we will be working very hard between now and mid-October to hold over 800 IEP meetings. So we will be very, very busy across the district, but we really need to get these held as soon as we possibly can for our students so they're ready to go when we go virtual. So we kind of started with who's already going to be virtual and like the high school and the middle school, since they are hybrid, we need to start there too. So that's kind of where we're doing with that. And then the other thing that we did and worked on with student support services is social emotional for our students. So Carla talked about social emotional for staff. We really worked hard on social emotional for students. So I had a group of counselors and student assistance team members across the district, and we worked on this together this summer. One of the biggest ways we're going to start is we're going to start by connecting with our families. So we are going to have every staff member making phone calls to every single one of our families once they come back and start August 31st. We have provided a possible script that they could use to help with that conversation, but really that conversation focuses on three main things. Number one, making that person-to-person contact. How are you? How is your family? How are things going? What's your summer been like? Are you okay? The second one, main purpose is, do you need anything? What are your resources like now? And especially, this was planned with COVID in mind, but now after the storm, it's going to take on another part of meaning to us. So what are your resources? How is your housing situation now? Do you have concerns with electricity still? Do you have internet concerns now? Anything new that's popped up? Just let me know about that. We can start looking at how we can get you assistance. And then the last one, main focus of that phone conversation is if we go virtual, what would that look like in your home? Who's home? Are you able to be home? Is your children at daycare? Is your high schooler taking care of your younger sibling? What does that look like for you so we can help plan what's going to work for you and your family? So that's kind of what is the point between making those phone calls with our families. We've already had the special education teachers have already started these phone calls because we have to get going with our IEP meetings. They said it's going very, very well, learning a lot of information, and the parents are very appreciative of just having a contact with somebody from the school. Let's see.
Are you doing those meetings with every student or just students with IEPs?
Every student.
Every student.
Yep, every student. I talked about it with the counselors of this is what, I was able to serve on the special ed task team for the state of Iowa. So that was one thing that when we worked with our task team, we came out with, let's make these phone calls to our students with IEPs and see how that was going. Then when I worked with all of our counselors in the district, I said, hey, this is something that we're going to be pushing out for special education, and they said, we want to do it for all. Let's do it for all. So talked with administrators, and we said to do it for every student. So,
that's great.
Yeah.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Do you have like a formal way to collect the information that you're going to get? Because I did, I would say I got a phone call as a parent in the spring. And it was really great just to have somebody call me and ask me what's been working for us and what wasn't. And so if there's a formal way to kind of gather that information would be good instead of, I know we can all kind of feel anecdotally that it feels like things are like this when they're not.
Right, right. So I took, what we did is I had one of my staff members, we took the script of what, because some teachers out there can just talk. And they're really great about taking and picking up the phone and just chatting away with the family. But you think of our brand new teachers or some people who just don't like the telephone. So we did make a script of if you want to use a script, here you go, this is your opportunity. So we took the script and then we made a Microsoft form off of it. So then the teacher can either write, if that's the most comfortable for them, or they can type in the answers. And then we gave each administrator the link. So the administrator will actually send the link to every teacher. And then the administrator is the owner of that, and it'll come out as an Excel with all the answers. So if you wrote it, you can just go back in and type it. Otherwise, if you're typing right there. But then every building will have their answers. And then the administrators can look at, they can go through and say, okay, here's housing needs. And I know I need to send that right to Katie Smith because she's our family resource specialist. I need to get these names to her ASAP. Here's internet things. I know I need to get that to technology ASAP. So they can just literally gather that right in their Excel. Okay, so that's how we're going to connect with families. Now, how are we going to connect with our students? So one thing that Nathan and I were working on prior to the pandemic was looking at something called restorative justice. We wanted to go get more information. It's something that has been high in research around an extremely effective practice around making connections, building relationships, and lowering student behavior. So we wanted to go and get some information on that, but unfortunately it got canceled, so we couldn't do that. As we were doing research, though, as counselors and looking at what's a really good way to connect with our kids, restorative circles or community circles was something that just kept coming up over and over and over again. So we decided to jump in and get on this. The best and easiest way to explain it is thinking of our Oveus circle. So how you get around in a circle, you have your talking piece, you share it around, and one person talks at a time. Well, with Oveus, there's kind of an agenda, and this is what I'm going to teach you this lesson, and we're going to talk about this lesson. With a community circle, it's an opportunity for a student to just voice any concerns that they have. And it's an opportunity for teachers to not teach, but to just listen. It's an opportunity for student A to learn about student B. And what is your life like? What's your viewpoint? How is that? And so it's about no judgment. It's about open conversation and hearing viewpoints and having the student feel like their voice was heard. So in the elementary, we are going to call them morning meetings. The expectation in the district is to do this at least once a week. It's about 20 minutes. So there are going to be morning meetings at the elementary level run with their elementary teacher. Middle level, they're calling them whatever they want to call them, but a lot of times you're going to hear just community circles. So community circles, they're going to have those once a week, and then at the high school as well. I ran it with the counselors. They have their PowerPoints. We made the PowerPoints. They do have books as well to help with how do you even get students just talking. Like, how do you do that? How do you make icebreakers? How do you do fun activities? It's really just breaking the ice and having fun together, really starting to connect to each other and be just understanding, really big understanding. So they have resources that will help them with that as well. We are going to continue as a department, whether it's from ourselves as a department or from our counselors or our student assistance team members, we're going to continue to send out bi-weekly or bi-monthly, communications on how do you continue to build relationships, how do you do that, and then how do you check in with your students. So a lot of times, and this was something that they were working on at the high school, of how do I just do a quick check-in of how are you feeling? How you doing today? And so just something that's easy and built into your curriculum so it's not in another edition. But how can I do just a quick check-in of, is everything going okay? So we'll continue to share those out. We also increased our partnerships. So we have Mercy Family Counseling that we've been working with, and they hold our emergency spots. We've been working with Covenant Family Solutions to be providing services in our schools. And now we also got Mercy Family Counseling to be providing on-site services as well. So they're going to start in our 2 new intermediate buildings. So we'll have Mercy Family Counseling providing on-site services at Boulder Peak and Hazel Point, starting there.
The student already had like an existing relationship with somebody at Covenant, right?
They will continue with Covenant. Yes. Yeah, we will honor that, definitely. Yep. And I think the other way around, I think, it'll just expand, but we'll start with that relationship there and move them up. Yeah. And then we're also doing what's called trauma-sensitive classrooms. So we worked last year on just really understanding ACEs, trauma-informed care. What does that look like? So the staff really said, we really understand what this is now. Like, we get it now, but how do I do it? So that's what we're going to have professional development on this fall. We have ACES 360 is going to give a presentation to all staff members virtually, and that's on how do you set up a trauma-informed or trauma-sensitive classroom. What does that look like? If I walked in, if I had a student who needed some assistance, what does that look like right in any classroom across Linn-Mar? So they're going to provide us professional development on that. And then the last thing that we are doing is for preschool through 6th grade. This one might change. We're going to talk about it because the derecho just kind of threw everything out. But what we've been looking at is doing actual COVID-19 lessons. So we're doing lessons for PBIS around how do you wear a mask? How do you wash your hands? How do you stay 6 feet apart? But actually looking at what is COVID so they understand what that terminology is. We're going to talk about that now of do they still feel they need a what is COVID, or are we just looking at our PBIS? Because now that we have the derecho, we have many students have that on their mind versus COVID right now. So going to talk with the counselors on their opinions on that, and we'll go from there. But we have them, see if people are using them. So that's what I have for students.
That all sounds great. How is that going to be utilized for the family choice model?
Good question. Good question. So one thing that we had talked about, and it was asked if they could do circles and like the community circles and things like that, but I said it wouldn't be an expectation in the family choice model. It's an expectation in there, but to be honest, we haven't talked about that connection within the family choice. That's something I can easily work with on them, but mainly we've been focusing on site. So, but we can talk about that.
Those families will still all get called though, so we're still going to have, regardless of whether you're on site or online, every teacher will follow up with a phone call to those kids as well. So I know that doesn't answer the community circle thing, but
I just think that families are choosing family choice for whatever reason, but those kids are still going to have social emotional needs, and the idea of having that community circle conversation and those check-in points, I think that that's valuable, and that I would hate to see those families miss out on that simply because they're not in the building. I think that should be something that should be universal to all of our students.
Yeah, and one thing that we're doing, and that's going to come out of the phone calls, is for our district, you have to have criteria on what is an at-risk student. So we have to identify who our at-risk students are. Well, with everything with COVID, we had to expand our definition and criteria for an at-risk student. And obviously, family choice model would be one of those because they're not attending school. So we have identified that. And part of our plan is if a student has been identified at risk, if we are virtual, number one, we should be looking at what is an adult that doesn't deal with their education, that they trust and know, and that person should be checking in with them once a week in addition to their teacher, just to say, how are you? So it's nothing academic related, it's just a, how are you? So that's one thing that we put in the plan. And there was another thing, and I can't remember specifically. But rechecking in just to make sure, well, the teacher themselves, sorry, that would be it. The teacher themselves has to just check in one more time individually with the student on, if they're at risk, on academics. So we know we have to recheck in more often with a student that's at risk to make sure that they're understanding the academics and they're staying caught up. So that's one thing we put in the plan too, is if we've identified them as an at-risk learner, they have to be checked in, one, by the teacher extra academically, and then two, by a trusted adult just to see how they are. But circles we hadn't talked about, so we can do that.
I just want families who've chosen that model to not feel like they're the black sheep or that they're the forgotten, you know, like the star child kind of thing, where they're getting the academics, but they're not really part of Linn-Mar this year. I don't want that to happen. So I want them to still feel like they're part of the community. Their students are still being supported in all of the normal ways that they would be supported. However, we need to facilitate that. I love your plan. It sounds great.
We've talked about that as well, to make sure whether that's just simple things like continue to be on their building email list and different things that way, that update. But then things like the community circle, another option we could sort of look into as well to stay as connected as possible. That's
I've sat in sessions on restorative justice and restorative circles. I think it's great that you guys are going that route. So that's a really positive thing. I just want to make sure everybody gets access to it.
Yeah, yeah. I think, you know, when we started all of this planning was way at the beginning of the summer, so family choice was just coming out. So now to go, oh, there's 1,800. That's a lot of things we need to go back and think about too. So, yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.
Next, we have technology services with Jerry.
I am going to make mine in 10 minutes. Maybe. Shannon asked us just to give you a little update on what we've been doing and the amount of equipment we've brought in and the amount of equipment that has been lost. This year for one-to-one, we've brought in 3,000 new laptops, configured, distributed to schools, added new wireless network out in the stadium, the parking lot. If you go out there, you can be on the Linn-Mar network, which helped our students and our staff during COVID. 27 new families have requested internet in addition to the 50 families that received internet services over the spring. We are ordering in 5 hotspots for every school to be able to check out to families who need that for a short period of time or something like a library book. Our ticket summary or request, 2018 to 2019 were 4,797. 2019 to 2020 were 6,113, or an increase of about 21.5%. Now, this is going to sound just like a bunch of numbers things. I'm sorry it doesn't have any warm fuzzies on it, but these are the things that made me cry this last week when we looked at equipment. At Wilkins, we had 311 laptops that were destroyed, 106 iPads, 6 document cameras, 3 phones, 27 wireless access points like this, and that was district-wide. There was 10 at Wilkins, but the stadium had 2, Oak Ridge had 1, Indian Creek had 2, so it's just district-wide. 12 projectors, 3 Apple TV or screen beam devices that allow wireless access, 2 computer charging cards, a 65-inch display, a smart board, 2 network switches, and a UPS. And a partridge in a pear tree. So that's what I have been working on the last week. The good thing is we brought in a ton of new equipment for our new schools. We have 114 new interactive displays that have touch points, and they are antimicrobial. Just keep all the germs away when they have their little hands on them. Gosh, I almost had that word. All the new network and access points have been configured at Boulder Peak and Hazel Point. They were in their offices today, just finishing terminating all the ports. So their offices should be functioning this week. Very excited about that. We are finishing our security project that is, I think, in our 4th year now, JT, with Echo Hill, Lynn Grove, and Novak getting their security door access and security cameras. So, and just how handy that happened to be this weekend. We had some vandalism at Indian Creek, and we have some beautiful pictures of that that are going to help the police identify that. So, these are the good news things. Let's see. We have purchased a ton of equipment this week, put in 7 new classroom audio systems at Indian Creek, 200 new Bluetooth headsets for the high school, Oak Ridge, and Excelsior, 140 new document cameras for the high school, Oak Ridge, and Excelsior to kind of help with their online teaching and instruction. We have implemented Schoology, which is the new learning management system for Linn-Mar. IT has brought it in, got it set up, and turned it over just this last week to curriculum for professional development and teacher training. We implemented and installed Follett Resource Manager, which is a new module for our library system, which will help them keep track and inventory equipment. Since now some of them have 1,000 new devices, which is like 1,000 new books in their library to keep track of. I'm close. Implemented School Messenger. You all got an email last week and a phone call. Those 2 modules are done. The text portion we are in the process of doing, and that should happen in the next 7 days or so. You have to opt in for that. So we just have to set that up and coordinate it. And then this is something that I find incredibly wonderful. We got a new data center smart row, which is a self-contained system for all of our servers and switches here in the LRC. The UPS was connected on Friday, and we're hoping to make that move in the next week. And that's all. I feel like, any questions?
I have a question about the laptops that were destroyed. Are we going to be able to replace them before school starts?
I do have, I was fortunate enough to have some old ones in stock, and we were able to upgrade those. We do have a an amount of laptops that we'll be able to replace those for Wilkins.
Okay. So everybody's going to have a laptop that is online learning or doing
A
the hybrid
laptop or an
model?
iPad.
Okay, and then, when are kids going to be able to get those, I guess, and where, and pick them up and?
Every school has a different process, and that's
Okay.
being managed by their media center. The high
Okay.
school has scheduled students to come in, I think, this week at different hours, depending on your grade. Typically, in the lower grades, middle school, they will be distributed in their homeroom the
Okay.
first week of school.
Okay, I knew that high school was supposed to pick them up, and then the derecho hit,
And kids were still coming to the door, holding on to the door.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
Can you just briefly, like, if parents didn't get the phone call last Monday, I know that I had emailed you about that, but for the sake of our audience, updating their information?
Yep. So for School Messenger, it's our new communication tool that we're really excited to have this year. And families really don't need to sign up for it like they had to with TextWire. All they need to do is make sure all their information is updated in PowerSchool, and then it's pulled from PowerSchool. So if we email or make a phone call, or eventually, as Jerry mentioned, the text communication, it will pull that information from PowerSchool to do that. So as long as their information is up to date, phone number, email address, then they will get those communications either building by building or as a district communication like it was last Monday night as well. And that was kind of our first trial run. I think for the most part it was well received, except for people that did not have the information up to date, which partially is because registration wasn't complete yet, we understand too. So, but that's all they need to do. There's no other commitment or sign up or opt in. Just make sure their stuff is up to date in PowerSchool via registration or check that, and they're good to go. And I want to commend Jerry and her team too, because we were not planning to be full one-to-one this year, as you were all aware. We were planning to be 5-12 is all. So made a quick decision, I don't remember, May, June, something like that, that we knew we had to expand that piece of it too. So in addition to everything else we had planned tech-wise this year, we literally doubled the number of one-to-one commitments we were going to make as well. So a lot of devices coming in and out, and it just makes it sad, like she said, to see that at Wilkins with the damage from the storm
That
too.
was painful.
But
I would like to say good job too on trying to figure out with all the hybrid, how to Zoom simultaneously a live class every day at 3 different buildings. When you figure that out, I'm sure you already have. I just had to do it for 11 people, and that was enough for me. So however you manage that, good job on that as well, because that's a challenge.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Jerry. Next, we have JT, Facilities Update.
Good evening. This is usually the meeting I get to talk about construction progress, and usually we're done at this point, and I get to show off pictures of new things. But unfortunately, with the storm, that changed the dynamic of this presentation. So just wanted to give you a brief update on kind of where we're at with that. Just, I guess, some positives to start out. Since the storm hit on August 10th, we've had an outpouring of staff, volunteers to help with the cleanup effort. So a big thank you to everyone who's assisted in that. Another positive, all of our buildings have power. Wilkins was the last building to receive power last Wednesday. So that's good news. I think most of our community now has power, so we can at least move forward with that. Also, I'm not sure if you're aware, on August 17th, we received an emergency authorization from Grant Wood so that we could move forward with emergency repairs to our buildings. Basically what that means is, in the Code of Iowa, if we have a natural disaster or some other emergency circumstances, we can apply to the AA for this authorization so that we can make repairs without having to go through competitive bid and competitive quote process, just so that we can do it in a more timely fashion. So we did receive that authorization from the AEA on August 17th. So we have moved forward with some of the repairs. The biggest hit or damage that we saw district-wide was to our roofs. We have made temporary roof, flashing, and fascia repairs to all of our buildings at this point. Again, these are temporary repairs. These are not permanent. They're not meant to be permanent. So as we go through the assessment process, working with the adjuster, Shive Hattery, there will be a lot more roof work, permanent roof work coming, probably not until springtime. Carpet that was damaged, that was deemed not salvageable, has been pulled up. In classroom areas, especially any carpet that was pulled up, we hope to have that replaced by the start of school. So classrooms, carpet back in, hopefully, cross our fingers, that will happen. I think we have a good plan to make that happen. There might be other areas in corridors, vestibules, or other common areas that, again, they're just bigger spaces. We're probably not going to get all the carpet. I'm thinking of Lynn Grove, for example. I know in their main entryway, there's no way that we're going to get carpet down before the first day of school. So that's kind of a tough thought for a lot of people. You know, usually the first day of school, we pride ourselves on the buildings looking their best. Unfortunately, this year that's not going to happen for a lot of buildings. So, but we'll do the best we can in that regard. Trees and other debris, like our community, were scattered throughout the district. That has been mostly picked up and cleared. So again, thank you to those people that helped do that. We did hire a third-party construction firm to help with the debris removal. So like the trees out here, you may or may not have seen the big trucks, and just to help us get things out, because we didn't have the equipment and manpower to do everything. If you saw pictures or even drove around the district, you saw a bunch of fencing down, like around the stadium. If you made it out to O&M Transportation, all that fencing got blown off. So some of that has been put back up in those areas, but we still have a lot of fence, obviously, tennis courts, and if you go out to baseball, softball complex as well, a lot of fencing that still needs repaired, but that's an ongoing process. In regards to transportation, 25 buses were deemed unusable after the storm. Most of that was the stop arms on the buses were damaged or bent, so they needed replaced or straightened. We hope to have about 20 of those buses ready by the first day of school, so that's positive news, I guess. 8 of our vans are deemed unusable and will not be ready by the first day of school. Just extensive glass work, exterior damage, just they will not be drivable by the first day of school. So Brian has a plan to hopefully get that done by the end of the first quarter. So if we do have more kids coming back on site, that we'll have transportation vehicles ready for those kids. Just to highlight some of the major damage items so far, I mentioned roofs. Every building had some sort of roof damage, but what I would consider significant roof damage, we had to Indian Creek, Wilkins, Oak Ridge, Boulder Peak, the Aquatic Center. Either a whole section of that roof was blown off, or it was just so widespread on that building that I would deem it significant. Wilkins interior damage to various classrooms and the multipurpose room, and as Jerry mentioned, because of the construction project going on there, we had a bunch of items stored in there, technology included, so over 400 technology devices were damaged. Indian Creek had interior damage to various classrooms. We had significant gym floor damage to Boulder Peak, Hazel Point, and Oak Ridge. Those 3, we know that those floors will need to be replaced. There's a couple other gym floors out there that are on the brink. We're trying to dry them out, and hopefully they can be salvaged, but we may be adding to that list. The high school auditorium stage floor got damaged and will need to be replaced, as well as the curtain itself got damaged. We're not sure if we'll be able to dry that out completely, if that will need completely replaced. At a minimum, will probably need to be, it's basically a fire retardant material, so it may have to, whatever that process is to make it fire retardant again, we might have to do that. Again, we're still kind of in that assessment mode. The Aquatic Center had extensive exterior damage. If you saw the visitor side concession stand, the canopy and roof blew off and into the Aquatic Center. So that's going to be a very pricey repair to the Aquatic Center, as well as to the stadium. And then, as I mentioned, there's just a bunch of fencing throughout the district that we have damaged. At Echo Hill, the light poles in that parking lot basically all came down, so that those will need to be replaced. And then I mentioned transportation vehicles. So those are that's just a small list of what we're dealing with. What I would say is the major damage. There's a lot more, again, that we're still assessing right now. So we're working with our insurance company, EMC, multiple adjusters. We've had one adjuster come out. Basically, he realized he was kind of in over his head, so he kind of had to call in reinforcements. So they were on site today, and they'll be on site the rest of the week to do a thorough assessment. That's going to take a while just to get all of that information collected and dollar amounts put to it, so just know that that's in progress. We're working with Shive Hattery to help us out with the assessments. Shive Hattery always, we contract with them anyway to do our annual roof assessments, so they've just kind of added this to that contract as far as just going through, and they just have a good idea of not only the roof material, but also the mechanical equipment that's on the roofs. We're working with Larson Construction as well to help with some of the storm mitigation work. They were available. We're familiar with them. They're on site, so they're helping us through some of these things as well as some other vendors. But like I said, this is going to take some time to get through it all. We will be ready to have kids the first day of school. Like I said, the buildings won't look perfect, but kids can be in the buildings. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We'll update the board as we move forward with everything. But yeah, it's a pretty overwhelming task right now in a lot of ways. So, any questions about the storm damage?
How is the damage to the aquatic center going to affect the swimming and diving teams? Are they able to practice in there?
Yeah, they've been practicing for 2 weeks basically, or yeah, pretty much the Monday after the storm, a week later I guess, so about a week now. And actually Cedar Rapids Schools, Jefferson, as well as Kennedy's have been using our aquatic center as well, so we're trying to do what we can to help them out while their facilities are still being assessed.
Are we going to be able to hold meets and what have you? I guess.
Yeah,
Are they
I guess
doing
the interior of the aquatic center, it did have water damage in the lobby area, so if you go in there right now, you can see that we had to knock out a lot of the ceiling there.
Okay.
But as far as the functionality of the swimming piece of it, it's not being impacted in that area. So we can still use it for swimming purposes. Just a quick update on the construction projects at Bowman Woods, Wilkins, and Indian Creek. Fortunately, there wasn't a lot of damage to the newly renovated parts of the building, so those, because we were without power, they did get delayed, but hopefully this week they'll all be punched out and we'll be ready to occupy those areas before teachers get back. Boulder Peak is on track to be done, minus the gym floor again. We have to demo that and replace that, but we can live without a gym floor. Hazel Point, we'll still, some of that work's been pushed back as well a little bit, but most of that building will be ready before school starts. Similar, the kitchen won't be ready, but we've already kind of talked about that. Just that timeline has been pushed back about a week or two. So I think that's all the construction projects that we're going. Jerry mentioned the security camera, security piece.
Mm-hmm.
There's maybe a few things with that need to be finished up, but other than that, I think we're ready to go. Any questions?
Looks good. Thank you, JT. Next, we have Nathan with teaching and learning update.
Yeah, hey, hi everybody. Hi. So, I think just the heaviness of that, we can all feel that, after listening to our updates and all we're asking staff to do, and then just driving around still makes you sad as you see stuff. So one of the things teaching and learning has really been trying to do is what can we help with? Obviously, you're hearing a lot of things that we're asking staff to do, and that list had grown large prior to August 10th, and then all of a sudden we got hit with that storm. So professional development is going to look a little bit different. So I want to talk about two things. I'm going to give you an update on professional development, and then I want to talk a little bit about our online learning. So, as you hear about all the things we're going through, it's just really tough for us at teaching and learning to balance what we absolutely have to have teachers do with all the what ifs that we're getting pressured to answer. And that's what's getting really overwhelming, because we just don't know a lot of those things. And teaching and learning really relies on the input of teachers. And so there are several things that we are just really looking forward to having staff back so that we can have teachers be a part of that decision. So when you look at the professional development schedule, we have 9 days, which is a lot. We've never had that. We've never operated under a schedule that way. What you're hearing from our task force. And I really want to thank, Carla, Lisa, JT for all the COVID safety stuff that you saw in her presentation. So that'll be day one as people come in. Before they ever do anything else, we'll go through all of the slides and all of the work that those committees had put together. Then when you hear about the community circles and some of the other things, we're thinking district-wide that'll probably take a day to a day and a half, depending on how much time that takes in the buildings. So that's going to leave a lot of time for the buildings to dig into then the other schoolwork. So Jerry then in teaching and learning, we really started looking at the instructional considerations. So standards, assessments, what do we teach? How do we get kids caught up? And again, we want that to be really building driven because that's going to depend a lot by level. So everything that we have asked teachers and the guidance we have provided to principals is that everything we ask them to do, they need to have equal time for teachers to prepare for that. So if you take a half a day talking about Schoology and how to use Schoology platform, then your teachers need to have half a day to implement that. So the buildings are really being cognizant of making sure that there is PLC time, collaboration time, just that work time, because they're literally going to have to teach different than we've ever asked them to teach before. And so we just want to make sure that we have that time built into the schedule. So again, we're just trying to, ask for patience with our teachers, obviously, because, we are in the process of identifying still who needs to teach those classes, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So thanks to my colleagues over here at Cabinet, we've really worked through a lot of that. And then our directors at Teaching and Learning have really tried to prioritize, what's absolutely essential, what can we get started with, and how can we do it in a way that takes kids' social emotional learning into it, that we're not testing them like crazy when they get back and trying to catch up everything we missed. We're just going to have to take it one day at a time. So professional development is set and ready to go. Its schedules will vary greatly by level and building, but we do have a lot of work time built in there for teachers. Any questions about professional development?
I just want to say thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Allowing the time to learn and get together and organize. That is just as important as giving the information to the teachers. Because if you don't give them time to digest it and work it out, how to do it, it won't be effectively done. So thank you.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. And, that was really all of us working on that. So we put all of these slides and information in one shared folder where buildings can access. And I just remember the principals had asked, well, how long do you think it's going to take that safety stuff? And I said, it'll probably take you all day. I mean, your number one priority is to make sure people feel safe and comfortable. I don't care how long that takes. Take as much time as you need. So we've put that all in a central location where buildings can access that and really kind of work through that with their staff at their own pace and level, which is just different, as a former teacher, how it used to be, hey, day one was here, day two was here, we had everything, planned out. We still have a plan. It's just really flexible. So we're looking forward to that. I think that'll be good. One other thing I wanted to add is that we got a donation from Apex. Apex is our online service provider that we use for credit recovery through Compass. They're based out of Seattle, Washington, and I got a message from our sales rep that said, hey, we heard about what happened in your community. We'd like to donate. So I thought that was really neat. We don't always hear that from our reps, so I just wanted to publicly thank Apex Learning and their employees for the donation. So we'll make sure that comes into the district and gets to any families that need it. All right, let me go through the online then. Last thing I'll hit here is the family choice model. So as of today, and I want to be careful with these numbers, last time when we shared numbers or when Shannon shared those at the meeting, I had left out a section of kids at Bowman. So it said like 220. And Tina called me and she's like, that's not right. She was panicked. And I said, well, that's what I have on my list. Well, we figured out we had missed a section of kids somewhere. So she's at about 280 kids. So Bowman is not as low. She wanted to make sure I said that. So that she had the right information out there. But we are at approximately 850 kids in K4, right around 300 kids 5th and 6th, 315 kids 7th and 8th, and then 440 students 9 through 12 that have chosen the family choice option.
Could you say those again, please?
Yep, 854 at K4, 297 at 5th, 6th, 314 at 7th and 8th, and then 439, 9 through 12.
Nathan, do you know what those percentages are as far as the total students, as a percentage of total students?
Yeah,
what that represents?
It's like 1,800. I think we calculate it's like 23%.
24%.
24%.
But do you know it for like elementary?
Oh, by
or-
level?
Yeah, by level.
No, I didn't calculate that. Sorry.
We can get that for
I
you
can
for
I
Friday's
can get
memo,
that.
though. Yep.
Okay.
So our online class size averages are going to run from about 15 to 25 students, K through 6. Again, I didn't put 7 through 12 on there because they're going to be in their normal class, and those, kind of depend on kids' schedules and things like that. So what that means is a teacher is going to have 30 to 45, maybe 50 kids in a day online, but they will teach those half in the morning and a different half in the afternoon. So that really keeps our class sizes, or the amount of kids that teachers have to instruct at one time, very similar across the district. So let me fill you in on how we determine the sections then. So that works out to be 28 sections. It's 21 sections of teachers or kids K through 6. It's one section of ECBP, and then 6 sections of 5th and 6th grade. So that's where we get to our 28. So the first thing we did is Carla and I worked together on just determining all of the teachers that had medical leave. So anybody that was on medical leave that couldn't teach in person will be assigned to an online section, because then that way they can still work from home, they still have a position. So Carla and HR worked on that. The next thing we did then, by pulling out those numbers, and you can imagine what that did to the class sizes, once we pull out 850 kids across the elementary, is that we then started looking at reducing the number of sections in the building that were really low. So we looked at just whatever the lowest per section class size was, and then we're working with the buildings to identify who those staff will be. And then the other thing we're looking at, and we're still working through this, so we hope to have these finalized this week, is just any other staff, specials, tag, reading teachers, ELL, counseling, just whoever else is in the building that would be able to teach an online section will then be our kind of third tier of assignments. So we closed this Friday night at midnight. We're working through those sections today, and I'm still trying to finalize our numbers because it's such a moving target with the buildings. I want to make sure we're accurate. And then we will work with HR on starting to notify staff this week of placement changes as far as, hey, you may move from this class to an online teacher. So our timeline is to get that done this week.
Nathan, have you had many teachers step forward and want to be the online people?
Yeah, they've had some of that interest in the building. So we've allowed that communication to kind of go through the building principal. And so then I'm working through with the elementary and then our 2 intermediate principals about who's interested, what makes sense. Obviously we have to look at certification as well, but we do have some flexibility at the elementary because it's, most people are certified K6. We're still working through the whole power school issue, so kids can only physically live in one side of power school, so we need to figure out what that's going to look like. Do we assign all kids from one building to a teacher? That probably isn't feasible. We'll probably have teachers cover kids from multiple buildings, but we believe we can keep them all assigned at the same grade level. So teachers won't have kids across multiple grade levels. They'll just have kids across multiple buildings. The last part of that then, and this kind of goes back to our professional development, is just really working with the online pedagogy. So what we're going to have the online teachers do is they will participate in those district-required day-and-a-half things as part of professional learning, and then we are going to work with them, we meaning teaching and learning, will work with them to provide specific training on Schoology, which you heard Jerry talk about. That's our new learning management system, and then how to teach in an online setting. We have a really good resource from Grant Wood that's, I would say, self-paced. We're not going to make teachers take the course for credit. We're going to walk them through what we think is appropriate. And again, starting real small chunks, just make it manageable. But we will provide them with the tools so that they feel better empowered to teach in an online setting, since that will be brand new for most of them. So with that being said, we have a good plan. I'm really confident in our planning and approach. We've kept the safety of kids and staff in mind as we've done this. I just want to thank my cabinet colleagues as well as our teaching and learning team, because we've had to rethink and reimagine school since July 15th. I mean, the pace has just been unreal. So, I'm proud to work with such a good group of people. And I would just say in closing, I trust our teachers and staff. So I know they haven't ever done this, but we'll set that expectation, and I know staff will rise to that challenge. So thanks for your support. Appreciate it. Any other questions?
I have one about what assessment is going to look like this year. Do we have any idea?
Yeah, so we're being told by the state we still have to assess and then progress monitor. So that means kids that will be either on-site or off-site. So I don't know quite how we're going to do that yet. The state is working on some browser capabilities where we could push something out and kids could access a secure browser. There's probably some things that will look different in the administration of testing if you're on-site versus online, but that you'll both get tested. And then I have no idea what the Iowa assessments will look like, and we won't worry about that until spring.
Okay, so you're just talking about the NWEA?
Yeah, NWEA and FAST. NWEA is easy because they can do it online, and so that should be fairly easy for us to do. I'm more worried about FAST and progress monitoring, and we'll just have to train the online teachers for what that assessment process will look like if their kids aren't in front of them. We may have to as well. One more thing. We talked about pre-algebra, and that's like a test we don't want to give away. So I'm working with the 5th grade. I think that's 5th or 6th grade. We may have to ask kids to come in on site and schedule that, but we don't know that yet. If that's the best way to administer the test, then we may look at that as an option as well.
Are you talking about for kids who may be taking pre-algebra next year, or who may be taking pre-algebra this year? Because
this year, we didn't test them in the spring, so we need to somehow test those kids that might be eligible for pre-algebra this year.
Okay, my understanding was that the teachers had gotten together and made recommendations for that. Is that not correct?
I don't know. I'd have to ask Erica. She's the one that handles that, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
But we'll figure out a way to do it, and that's basically what the state has said. It doesn't matter what setting you're in, you got to figure out a way to test kids.
Well, right. I guess I'm just thinking, like, if you haven't made that determination already, how are you going to put them into classes? You know what I mean? Aren't their schedules already out?
Well, that's what we're working on.
Okay.
Yep.
Can you follow up with me, like,
Yep.
by
We
email?
have a meeting on Friday, and I know we talked about that last week. I just wasn't sure what specific she worked out with the building principals in regards to that.
Okay. And then as far as the NWEA, that would be possibly taken online by students who are doing virtual. I guess, when they do that in school, there's somebody to monitor that. So how does that, can you be sure that your data is reliable if you don't have somebody monitoring that?
That's our concern with the state requiring testing, yeah. And NWEA may have some guidance on that. I just haven't seen what that may or may not look like yet.
Okay.
I mean, you'll see like data outliers, right? If you have a kid that was like down here, all of a sudden is up here, that's going to be a flag to ask questions. And I think it's good, like, testing is one of the things that really drew us to one-to-one from BYOD when we were having that discussion. And so, I mean, I feel confident about it because it was, Jerry had said repeatedly that on school-issued devices, that environment is a lot more controllable. So
yeah,
hopefully it works out.
Yep, we'll keep working on it. Okay. Thank you.
I have 2 questions, but they're quick. The online, I've looked at the schedule and the FAQ section and all that. Are there going to be packets and supplemental things that we provide that go along with those online lessons, or like what is that?
We want online to be purely digital, unless there's a student that would have some need for accommodation to have written materials.
I'm thinking at the elementary level when they're practicing handwriting or, you know, things that you monitor, how are their letters coming, how are their sentence structures coming, how are they telling the story? I mean, a lot of that is
Yeah.
physical
Yeah.
work. So what is
So
that?
handwriting's probably not a good example, but for the most things, we want to try to find a digital way to present that information to kids. Because we really, the sending paper stuff home, we don't think we can sustain that through the school year like we did in the spring. That was really difficult to do. Now, if a student needs it, like I said, so there may be a component of that we have to look at just alternate ways for kids to practice or do that. Now, hopefully with our younger ones and the iPads, some of that stuff you can do with your finger on the screen, so that may be something we look at.
Okay. And then you mentioned when you were looking at how staff assignments were going to be made, and you were looking at the buildings who had the smallest sections and then taking those teachers out. What happens with the kids that were in that smallest section now? Do those class sizes in that building get bigger?
No, that's a great question. So that puts our average class size for the on-site kids, sorry I didn't mention this, kindergarten through fourth grade, between like 16 and 18 kids. Then our average class size for the on-site kids, 5th and 6th, will be like between 19 and 22.
Okay.
So it was, I mean, for the most part, we were able to then K-6 keep them under 22 kids in a class. So we don't have any of those 26, 27, 28 sections.
And then, okay, so that's good. How are we addressing social distancing in those classrooms?
For the on-site?
For on-site, when there's between 16 and 22 kids in a room, how are we doing social distancing?
Yeah, we're just going to try to do the best we can with those. I mean, obviously the 2-week window helps us because we'll only have kids in there for half that time. I know teachers are looking at different configurations and groupings and how can I space kids out. But yeah, that's where our class sizes will be for the on-site kids.
Okay, so after you guys bring all the teachers back and they get in their classrooms and we start figuring all of these unknowns out with everyone on site and we get through our 2-week soft start, I would be interested in a follow-up on when everyone's back and it's not a 2-week soft start, what the social distancing in those classrooms look like, because that is key to wearing masks plus social distancing is how we keep people safe. That's the best we can do in our circumstances, so I would like to know what that looks like once we have everyone in the buildings and teachers are figuring out what those classrooms look like. Because I know there's a lot of concern around 16 to 22 kids in a room and you can't social distance adequately. So I would like to know more about that when we get people back in the buildings.
We can certainly follow back up on that again as well, because like you said earlier, this first time through this for any of us, so we try to figure that out, whether that's spreading out within the classroom, whether that's using the neighborhoods of the pod areas to help expand and look at space options there as well. We know we're not going to be able to completely social distance every student 6 feet all day long everywhere. We certainly want to do as best we can to help address that as much as possible. But I think that's also why our plan has choice for families too. Everybody has a different level of comfort and different level of the perspective on what they think is best as well. So but we're certainly looking at ways to try to be creative to spread out within the classroom as much as possible. Part of that has been removal of lots of stuff from the classrooms as well, to try to spread things out throughout the rooms, more space for kids in their desks and their chairs, instead of all the other things that may typically be in there as well. So yeah, we could certainly follow back up as we, 1, begin the school year, and then 2, as we phase out of the soft start for the K-6 as well, what that looks like.
And I recognize, I mean, there's so many things we don't know, and we don't have teachers back, and things aren't configured, and once we get students in, it's going to look a lot different than what we perceive it to look like. So I would like to follow up on that, and especially after teachers come back and start making more decisions on specials. Like, those are 2 things that I would like to know more about as they're determined once teachers are back. So, but I think it all sounds good. Those are 2 outliers that I'd like more follow-up on.
We can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next, Superintendent Biscard.
Yeah, the cabinet update was pretty much done by cabinet tonight, so thanks guys, well done. You did better than I would normally do anyway, so I think we'll just continue that going forward. But that was not accidental tonight, though. We thought there's so much detail, so much information. that this group and their teams have been working on literally since spring break, as they try to make sense of everything too. So what you saw tonight was kind of a culmination of months and months of work by lots of people. So I want to thank not just cabinet, but their departments, teachers that came in to help with this throughout the summer, working virtually as well, counselors, just all kinds of people to help as we prepare for the school year. I really think we have a good plan. I know we're going to have things we're going to have to change once we get into it. We've literally never done this before. It's interesting to see as schools across the state are starting today, a lot of them, and we'll learn from them. We'll see what's working for them, what challenges they have stumbled across that they didn't think of or have adjusted. And then once we start in a couple weeks, we'll do the same thing. We'll learn, we'll adjust, and I'm sure our plans will look much different now versus October as well with everything too. So I'm excited about getting teachers back. I think that'd be a really big step for us to get teachers back in the buildings. Whether it's the learning process of going through with professional learning, or whether it's giving them time to help problem solve and figure things out as well. That's a really important step for us. So looking forward to next week. And then just figuratively, that's a nice piece for us too, to get teachers back as well. That'll be important for us to do. So looking forward to that part. The only thing I will really add to much depth to what we already said, I guess two things. One, the storm recovery continues to be a challenge for us. I'm really pleased with the progress we've made the last 2 weeks, but we still have a lot of work to do. But like JT said, I think we're in a good spot for students, for staff to return next week, but really for students to return in 3 weeks. I'm glad you guys chose the support of the 3-week delay, because we are going to need that. It makes me feel very confident that we'll be ready to go in 3 weeks for kids, that they can return safely, and that we'll be ready. So I think that's important. But that will continue to be a time demand for us, in addition to a financial demand for us as well, as trying to figure things out. But I feel good about where we're at. I think it's important for everybody to know coming back, our buildings are going to be safe, they'll be ready for kids, and it'll be a great place to return to. And then the last thing I'll just mention is on the family choice model a little bit more as well. As you heard, Nathan, the numbers of students, about 1,850 students total. It's about 1,000 students in the K-6 portion of things. And I highlight that for one reason, to let you know, 1,000 students in online only at the K-6 level, plus 29 staff members. That's bigger than a building for us at that level. So what we're going to do is, Bob Reed's our Director of Innovation. He picked up an additional responsibility on Friday afternoon. But he's going to essentially become our online principal as well for the K-6 level for our online students. And I say that jokingly a little bit as his extra responsibility, but he's very excited about that. It fits really well with the work he's doing of supporting teachers and supporting our academic online and the innovation work that he does as well. So now he'll have a lot more hands-on type responsibilities as well for that piece too. And we think it's really important for our teachers that are identified that they have an administrator to go to for their first contact, whether it's curriculum question, instruction question, management stuff. So that he will be their first contact for their responsibilities. They'll still be in their building. They'll still have that connection there as well. But I really think Bob will have the chance to lead and really kind of pull that team together as a separate staff as well. So they'll kind of live in two worlds, their own building and then their online building as well. So, and then he will also be the primary contact for families that may have questions as well. So he'll kind of take on that responsibility too. So I want you to be aware of that. When we start to communicate with teachers this assignment changes, they'll be notified of that as well. That they'll have, luckily enough, they'll have 2 administrators they get to work with in their buildings going forward too. So I think that'd be really important for us to support those staff members, support those families, and help us stay organized and cohesive as we try something brand new for us going forward. So, and then the last thing I'll just mention, you heard a couple of comments tonight from family members about transportation questions. We are looking into that neighborhood to see if there's solutions to that, whether that's working with the city about some options or transportation too, as we will work through that. I'll keep you up to date where we stand on that as well, since I want to make sure you understood where that communication has been at as well. So I think that's all I had.
All right, thank you.
I have a question. So on the note that you sent out Friday to us, you mentioned teachers scheduled mask break throughout the day. What do you mean by that? Is that, are you talking like recess and and lunch, or what do you mean by that?
Recess lunch, like you mentioned, but also potentially during their classroom if there's a time that they can feel that they can spread out in their room and give kids a short break with their masks as well, that they'll have the authority to do that as well as they think it's safe to do so. And really that's going to depend a lot on the age of the student and the age of the situation with their classroom as well. We don't want to become a student selective break because that's open to a lot of interpretation of what they think is needed. But for staff members, they will have the authority to kind of look at that and see. And those are things we'll work through with principals on Wednesday in our meeting, and then also with staff going forward to what that looks like.
I guess that gives me heartburn a little bit, especially since the last several meetings, but it does give me heartburn, I guess, because we're not going you can't socially distance in a classroom. I mean, you can get 16, 18 desks in there, and they're not 6 feet apart. So, at least in some classrooms, I'm not saying it won't.
And that would be an example. If we can't socially distance, then it won't be able to be a break. But if there's ways to socially distance and provide that break, then that would be the time we'd look at with it. And that might be one of those things that we'll have to see how it goes to see. I don't know how realistic it is to expect a 7-year-old to wear it all day through the entire time, or I don't know until we give that part a try and see. But your point's well taken, though, that if it's not able to be social distance, then it can't be a mask break at that stage.
I guess I was hoping you were thinking the recess and lunch, and I get that, right? That gives them a break at certain periods, but I guess I'd like to try it, and, you know, I think we should, I think we should try to wear masks all day if we can, unless it does make sense, kind of like what we've been talking about before.
Well, the other question is, how is it fair if certain kids are in a larger classroom and get a mask break, but those who happen to, you know, draw the short stick and be in a smaller classroom don't get a break?
I just talked to about this too, having mask-free zones in classrooms, and some teachers were not comfortable with that being suggested by their administrators. And
I am not comfortable with
I'm
that
not comfortable
being
with it
suggested.
either.
Don't do it.
The idea of a mask-free zone, meaning this space is reserved for no masks, but then people are breathing and it's an airborne virus. Like I'm not comfortable with that at all.
I don't think that a mask-free zone?
Yeah,
That was the term that I was given.
And that's not something I'm aware of on that piece of it either, so that's not part of what we're necessarily looking at system-wide. That's something we need to clarify as well.
That this is a really good opportunity to just reemphasize part of our conversation last week about the need for strict consistency. I want there to be flexibility with administrators and to a certain extent, but there are some things that just we need consistency across the level buildings, like all the elementaries need to be consistent and the middle schools need to be consistent. Or you're going to have teachers that, well, my colleague in this building feels safe, but I don't because I have a different policy and a different administrator. We need consistency so that these things aren't cropping up.
Well, and I mean, I'm all about flexibility, but when we talk about flexibility where this is concerned, flexibility seems to be synonymous with outbreak, and, you know, I don't know. I just continue to be concerned about this, and every time I hear something like this, it gives me heartburn and makes me nervous. And, you know, I guess from my perspective, if we don't think that we can keep masks on kids all day at the K-6 level, aside from like recess, perhaps, you know, vigorous physical activity in PE or lunch, that makes me question whether we're making the right decision sending them back into the classroom. And I say that there is nobody in the district who wants her children to go back to school more than I do, but
Like if we have mask issues, then we need to consider how many kids are in the room. That's step one. I mean, we're not gonna not send them back. But if we get to a point where we're having trouble with elementary kids keeping their masks on, then I think we need to reevaluate how many kids are in the classroom. If they need mask breaks, then we need to reconfigure the class to make that happen. But I don't.
Yeah, I think going forward, we all know that masks are important in the classroom.
Yeah.
And that will be something that we will use. So I think Shannon's got that clear direction, and we should move on from here.
And the one thing I will add to it is, we are above what the public health recommendation for the masks requirements are, and I think that's good to err on that side of caution with it. And I think until we actually get into it and experience it, I don't know how that's going to look. I'm really curious to hear what classroom teachers say with, after one day, after a couple days, do we need to have those breaks? If we don't need to, then we won't have them. But I don't know what that's going to look like right away. So if we put some restrictions on kind of tightening that piece up as far as how that looks, or making sure that social distancing is part of that piece to make sure that's, if there's not that social distancing piece and the mask can't happen, then I get that part of it too. So.
I have great faith in our elementary teachers. They do miracles every day with kids that I could never convince kids that young to do things. But I'll also say I have a just turned 8-year-old who wears his mask all the time because he thinks it's fun. So I think that we may be every kid's different, but I think that there will be kids that it's not going to be a problem. And we just have to see what happens. I think the biggest part, parents could be supportive of this policy and encourage their kids to participate. That would be helpful.
Good point. All right. Anything else that you'd like to share, Shannon, at all? Shannon, is there anything else?
Nope, that's it for me.
Okay. Tim, can you tell us about the Marion City Council?
Yes, I wasn't at the special session one though, but.
Okay, that's
The
fine.
one I was at, yeah, there wasn't a whole lot. There was a land, rezoning of land south of Tower Terrace and west of Winslow Road for single family and then also for business. So that was the main thing that was.
Okay. All right. Okay, so we're going to move forward to unfinished business. We have the school calendar update. We're going to start with the motion, and then Shannon can maybe give us a highlight of things, if that would work out.
Make a motion to approve the updated 2020-2021 school calendar with a delayed start date of September 14th as presented.
Second.
Okay. Second. Kara, motion. Clark for second.
A couple of key points from the calendar. September 14th start date, as you know from our conversation last Monday. June 10th would be the last day, which it was getting late. That's not ideal. But when you move things back, that's kind of the domino effect that starts to happen a little bit. The only other major changes that I guess would be on the calendar from what you saw earlier is the quarters are adjusted accordingly to try to match up better balance instead of being that first quarter would be really short if we didn't make those adjustments. Pretty much all the other holidays and times are left the same. One thing you will notice on the calendar is once school starts, there are not a lot of days off between the start of the year and the end of the year, except for holidays. That's primarily because we moved to the teacher work days, professional learning days, a lot of them to the front of the year, thankfully, to give us some time. And then we also have added some at the end as well. But once school starts, there should be pretty uninterrupted learning opportunities, which I think will be really good as long as COVID doesn't throw us a curve otherwise. So other than that, I think it's pretty consistent with what you saw in the last iteration.
Any questions? Not seeing any then. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It carries. Okay, next we will look at the legislative priorities of which we need to give our information to Des Moines. And you were given a packet with all kinds of information, and hopefully you look through it and kind of have yours that are there as your priorities. If you look at the last 2 pages of the packet, it talks about what the Iowa School Board legislative priorities, what the administrative part of it, I guess, came up with. And they were supporting preschool mental health resolution, school funding policy, and supplemental state aid. And I would like us to just start with, are there any of those that people are thinking are important and we should write those down as a priority and then kind of negotiate from there as to what we might need? Personally, I think anything that has to do with funding, we need to jump
Agreed.
on that like crazy.
Agreed.
Having said that, Kara, what were you thinking?
That was supplemental state aid,
Okay,
special ed weightings,
Yeah.
like you said, anything that has to do with funding.
yeah, okay.
I also believe that there's definitely support to mental health, as stated last time. And as the cabinet has presented and questions that have gone back and forth, we're in an unknown situation that deals with faculty and students and families. And with the storm, that has added a lot of questions and trying to get homes and situations ready for school and students ready for school. I think that's imperative that we put the mental health aspect in there. I think there's going to be a lot of anxiety as the school begins, and I'm not just talking about family and students, but teachers as well. I think that when Lisa was talking about the community circle, I think that's really going to help with relieving some of that tension, not only for the students, but as the teachers go through that also, and keeping the parents updated on that's really good. But I think that is, along with the supplemental state aid and special needs money, I think those things have got to be a priority.
Okay, so we have out there the SSA, mental health. Another one seems like the school funding policy. It supports the school foundation formula and that. Other ideas. Tim, did you have something
Yeah,
you'd like to share?
Besides that one, number 26, local accountability and
Yeah, I
decision
saw
making.
that one too.
I mean, in light of everything that's gone on, I think that would be a big thing.
Local accountability and decision-making is what it's
Yeah.
called, number 26.
26.
Deals with local authority, I
That-
think.
That was one that came to mind for me too. Are we thinking that looks like a good thing, number 20? I'm just going to write down the numbers and go back later to get all the info in there.
It was 18, school funding policy we mentioned, and then 26,
Okay, all right, and 18.
accountability.
Okay, and I think we have room for maybe one more. Before we did, there's preschool listed on here, but special education was another. Special education funding always seems to be a mystery to me.
That's on my list.
And,
Well, the formula's broken, so
Yeah,
any,
it's
any
just
priority that can
ridiculous.
focus on them maybe looking at it
Yeah,
and
yeah.
trying to, I don't know, any attention that can be brought to that, because at some point, if they're responsible, they need to fix it.
Okay. So
Yeah.
Barry, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I'm good with that. I'm
And-
slightly concerned about the preschool, but I think that's probably going to get lost in the shuffle because of the 4 items that we
Yeah.
already picked.
Yeah,
Because I agree with all of them.
I know, it's tough.
It's
isn't
really
it?
almost black and white for us to
Okay.
figure out what
Okay.
we need to pick.
So you were
Are we-
thinking number 8, which is the special education funding?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
I support that 100%.
All right. Are we?
That deficit has bothered us for years and years and years, and they
Yeah.
don't seem to do much
It
for it.
doesn't seem to go away, and we
Gotta
keep
keep
asking
pounding
for
away
help,
at
right? Okay, so what I'm hearing is the SSA, the local accountability decision-making, which is number 26. 18 is school funding policy, and number 8 is special education funding. Is that correct?
I'd move to approve those 4 items if we're ready for that.
Okay. Okay, we have Barry as the motion, second by Kara. Is there any other discussion?
The only
Any
thing is
concern?
we took off mental health. I don't
We
know.
did. Should we put that as a number 5 and just
Yes.
put it in there and go with it?
What?
Put mental health in there too?
I like 5.
Yeah,
I know they're only allowed 4, but still, let's just. put
Yeah,
5.
but we kind of push that every year, Tim, so.
Did we?
Yeah, I think
Oh,
so.
okay. We usually have more than they want.
Okay, yeah, we always
Pretty
turn in
cool
more
from us.
than we're supposed to, I think, so. Okay, so adding mental health in there.
Make sure I have that right. So 18, 19, 26, 8, and 7?
Yes.
Is that the?
But isn't the legislature, didn't they have mental health as one of their top
Yes,
ones?
yeah. It is. It is.
The school board, IASB.
ISAP.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we're good. So we got through our discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll move on from there. Thank you all for coming prepared. Next, we have a motion for open enrollment requests.
Make a motion to approve the open enrollment requests as presented.
Second.
Okay, Kara and Clark. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the walk-in personnel exhibit.
Thank you. So we have Rachel and Britt. The reason why I'm saying names is it's very hard sometimes to know who made the motion and that kind of thing, so we're just going to say those. Any questions, any discussion here about our consent agenda? Anything that you would like to talk about? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carries. Okay. So we're to board communications. Anything for the good of the order? Anybody that? Okay. Is there anyone who would like to be in charge of August 27th for the virtual Marion City Council meeting? Be responsible for that? Anybody?
I can do that.
Okay. Thank you, Barry. And we have also listed there September 3rd and September 17th. Is there?
You could do either one if someone has a preference for a date.
Okay. So if you want to do the 3rd, I'll do the 17th. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
So Britt for the 3rd, and I will do the 17th. Okay, I think we've got that all.
Are we okay not having a board meeting until the 14th? Are we needing to have a special session before that, or are we good, Shannon?
I think right now we're good.
Yeah.
We
There may be something
reach
that
out
comes
and
up.
see, that may change by tomorrow, but as of now, we're okay.
But today it looks good. But try to keep the Mondays open because as we did last week, we kind of just needed to meet, so.
I
you
say
can-
it wouldn't surprise me if after teachers come back and decisions are made, we might need to.
We
talk.
might need to regroup,
Yeah.
so,
The world may change a lot in the next couple of weeks, like it
Yeah.
has the last several.
absolutely. Okay.
Just a real quick comment. Shannon
Sure.
and your leadership team, in all sincerity, you've done an awesome job. Thank you for the communication, all the hard work. And we really hope it goes smooth for the next few weeks as things roll out, so thank you.
Just to add to that, I mean, there's so many things that we've never done before. And all we can do is give it a try. We have a plan, go for it, give it a try, tweak it as we need to. And I think working together like all of you are doing and all of us, call on us if you need us. So thank you so much. Anyone else?
I echo that.
Okay. So if not, I would take
Make a motion to adjourn the regular meeting at 7:02.
Okay. And Britt and Kara, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're good. Thank you.